All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, it's been a while since my last update on the case of Jeffrey Epstein, and the developments have been maddening since the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell. Most of the news about the trial involving some inane claim by her as to why she should be let out of prison. And so, absent a recent superseding indictment, the developments in the case have been glacial, with my fear that public interest in the case would fade, as those of us who track the developments simply didn't have all that much to report to the public. But nearly all of that has changed in the last week with two twin stunning developments, which show the sinister powers behind this case, both involving the mysterious death of Epstein himself and the way that he was able to wield power at the highest level of American society for decades with impunity. So the first stunning development broke Friday in news that the prison guards tasked with guarding Epstein the night that he allegedly committed suicide admitted to falsifying records, but will avoid jail time. So according to the plea deal reached with prosecutors, the two guards, Tova Novell and Michael Thomas, were supposed to check up on inmates, including Epstein, twice an hour. However, video footage from the night of Epstein's alleged suicide shows them both at their desks browsing the internet for furniture, motorcycles, and sports news. And in some cases, footage also showed the guards sleeping up to 2 hours in between checking up on the inmates. Now, the plea deal states that both Noel and Thomas admit that after the fact, falsifying records, saying they checked on inmates while they were under their watch. However, they will serve no jail time. Instead, they will get only 100 hours of community service. They will be required to cooperate with the Justice Department's ongoing Inspector General report into how exactly Epstein died. Okay, so let's get this straight. The guards charged with guarding Epstein admit not only did they not do their jobs, but that they covered it up, which lead, at least in some form, to his death. And yet, they get to walk away scot-free? And while I am loath to give Senator Ben Sasse some credit for anything, he is the only member of Congress to even take notice, saying, quote, "This is unacceptable. Epstein's victims have been failed at every turn. 100 hours of community service is a joke. This isn't traffic court. The leader of an international child sex trafficking ring escaped justice. His co-conspirators had their secrets go to the grave with him. And these guards are going to be picking up trash on the side of the road. The public deserves a full report of the Bureau of Prisons' failures, and Maine Justice needs to redouble its efforts to bring every one of Epstein's co-conspirators to justice." That's exactly right. The story is a perfect example of how so many in the orbit of those who were tasked with protecting Epstein, either from women he was victimizing or himself, have simply disappeared into the ether. From Alexander Acosta for letting Epstein go off with a sweetheart deal, to the bank executives who've been fined, but not all that much, for facilitating his likely alleged sex trafficking payments, and now to the very guards who in some ways protected him from real justice that he deserved. And just to give you an idea of what failure looks like, look no further than the recent revelations from the divorce of Bill and Melinda Gates. Now look, the tawdry details of Gates complaining to Epstein repeatedly about the state of his marriage and hanging out and all of that aside, the question remains, what was Bill Gates getting from Jeffrey Epstein he couldn't get anywhere else? His previous explanations say that it was related to a bizarre financing scheme for philanthropy. But some new revelations actually shed even more light on that. Gates staffers tell the Daily Beast that Gates justified his dozens of hangouts with Epstein by saying the disgraced pedophile was going to help him get a Nobel Peace Prize. What? Why would a man who had been charged with trafficking underage girls for sex be able to assist with that? Let's dig deeper. So according to the reporting, Gates not only noticed that Epstein was friends with him, but multiple other powerful people. Gates reportedly saw Epstein as his, quote, sure ticket. But the reporting gets even more bizarre. In Gates' bid to get the Nobel Peace Prize, he had a meeting with the head of the Nobel Committee, Mr. Thorbjorn Jagland, in 2013. And guess who facilitated and accompanied Gates in that meeting? Epstein, along with other prominent so-called philanthropists who had been receiving Epstein funding. This is yet another example of this ultimate question. How does he know all of these people? Where did this money come from? As I have posed in a recent segment on Epstein, Bill Gates is either the richest or the second richest man in the world. He has been since I was basically born. Almost every prominent person in the world will pick up if he calls them. Any bank, any president, any philanthropist. Why did he need a disgraced pedophile to help him get a Nobel Peace Prize? He could have gotten help from so many others. Why did he need Epstein's help financing anything? he's got $130 billion. The answer to that question belies not only much of Gates' own very questionable conduct, but will hopefully unravel the ongoing mystery as to how exactly the wealthiest and most powerful people in the world all seemingly knew Epstein, worked with him, allowed their influence to be subject to his dealings with other wealthy people, and ultimately commit crimes for many years to come. I think it is, first of all, the guards thing, I don't even know what to say about that. That's insane. They admit that to covering up what they did, and then they're just let off with like the most sweetheart deal of all time. Okay, that's definitely not, seeming somehow evidence of a conspiracy, but then you go and you look at the Gates thing, because this is the thing I want to get at. And I know it's very simplistic to be like, oh, the sex stuff. That's maybe a part of it, maybe, allegedly. But you go and you see the Nobel Peace, that's where I'm like, I actually believe that. Because Bill Gates is a total narcissist. He thinks he's like the greatest thing that's ever happened to humanity.
Right.
His foundation has been pumping all this money into malaria, which is great, all that. But he really wants that Nobel Peace Prize. And Epstein, somehow, through all of his funding, machinations, whatever, maybe blackmail, allegedly, all of that, seems to know all the guys on the Nobel Committee. You can't deny that. The Norwegian press revealed, last year that he had met with the head of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. That's insane. He's the one who facilitated the meeting between him and Gates. And look, I know all these conspiracy theories about cabals and all stuff, 99.9% of it is false, but sometimes it's true. And in this particular case, what else can you conclude? That Gates knows, again, one of the richest people in the world for decades.
Right.
He has to use this guy to get him to the Nobel Committee, but seemingly, Gates probably been trying to get a meeting for a long time, but Epstein's the guy who can deliver.
The one that made it happen.
Look,
it's bizarre.
Yeah.
Also, just the fact that you think you can work the system to get yourself a Nobel Peace Prize is also a revelation to me. Of course, that too is also completely corrupt.
It's all for sale.
It's all for sale. It's all completely corrupt. It's all based on knowing the right convicted sex offender, pedophile, apparently.
Right.
And look, I could maybe forgive people who are associating with Epstein before the conviction, right? Before the deal in Florida. Maybe they didn't know, right? Okay, I could imagine that. This guy's on a sex offender registry. This is all in the public sphere.
One Google search
away. And you're still hanging around with him. You're one of the richest people on the planet. And this is the guy you're going to for advice. You're going to help you get your Nobel Peace Prize. What are you doing? And the thing is that, again, if it was just one weirdo like Bill Gates, you could be like, all right, well, I guess he just has a really bad judgment.
Right.
But the fact that this pattern just seems to repeat itself over and over again with person after person after person, you're like, all of these people just had a complete failure in any sort of rational or pragmatic decision making. They're all brought in by this guy. They're all lured in by him. They all continue to associate him with him. What is going on here?
Yes, and that is why, I didn't want to focus on the tabloid stuff. All the Gates hanging out with him dozens of times, complaining about his marriage. Although I do think that is part of it, because it does show some comfort. And clearly somebody was in that room and is leaking all of this. Maybe, Melinda Gates' divorce team, congratulations. But the real important part was when I saw the Nobel Peace Prize, because I said, oh, this is about leveraging networks of power, where Gates wants to go and buy the Nobel Peace Prize, I guess when you're the richest man in the world. And whenever you're one of those people, you turn to the fixers, right? The people who can go and solve these types of problems for you. And so this is Epstein in this particular case, which just actually does tell you how powerful he was within that elite network. And you think about that again in the context of how we know all the revelations. Leon Black, $150 million payment. In 2 years, for what? Again, he says it's for tax advice. What tax advice is this? You're worth $9 billion. You can't go to Goldman. You don't think Goldman's been helping rich people skirt taxes for years? You can go to every wealth.
A lot of experts on that.
Exactly. You can go to any wealth management division across the country. Those people will do it for you for free and totally legit in exchange for whatever paltry percent that they save you. So why are you paying this guy $150 million? And why are you doing it through shell corporations involving your helicopter holding company? I love how rich people hide their money.
Yeah.
So all of this is happening. Then you go and you think about Leslie Wexner. and you think about the original origins, and it's like a pattern that cascades itself up to the very top of elites, both in terms of the social elite, like the Nobel Peace Prize and all that, and the financial elite. And I can't help but conclude that we are not getting the full story here.
And I also have to go back to Alex Acosta, because the fact that he gave him that sweetheart deal, barely a slap on the wrist, allowed Epstein, that's what allowed Epstein to continue to operate in every single way and continue to ingratiate himself in these circles of high power here and around the globe. And that is something that is wildly disgusting and which he's never going to pay any price for.
That's exactly right. All right, I'm looking forward to your radar next, Crystal.